Chapter 1, The Golden Cage.
The dazzling rays of the Barbadian summer sun illuminated the spacious, bright library of the Donovan estate. It had been a corner of paradise for Candra Brightmoon, the only place other than the bedroom where her family had not disturbed her with lectures and silly questions, for they were not much of a reader and so rarely visited it. And now, with a look of complete serenity on her face, she took a book from the shelf, opened it, thoughtfully flipped through a few pages, when suddenly...
"There you are. I've been looking for you,"
she screamed, flinching and unable to hold the book in her hands. It fell to the floor with a clang and slammed shut, and the irritated lady turned sharply on her cousin's voice and measured his smirking face with a derogatory look.
"Why so frightened? Have you read too many legends about cursed pirates?"
He asked her curtly, blushing proud of his own wit, glanced down at the book, and grew more red in pleasure as he snorted mockingly.
"And what have we got here? The second star to the right? Moved from mythology to children's fairy tales, did you?"
"Michael, what do you want?"
she dryly asked, suppressing the emotion in her voice only to find her fingers briefly balled into fists and her lips curled up angrily. She had no intention of explaining herself to her cousin. He wouldn't have caught her infatuation with maritime lore anyway, and the supposedly children's reading she'd chosen for a reason, as she was in the process of researching the biography of one intriguing individual who appeared there as a villain. Captain James Hook. Who is he? The former naval officer who became one of the most brutal pirates in history? Blackbeard's bosun and now leader of the Jolly Roger's crew? A character from the Peter Pan fairy tale or a defeated criminal authority? Information was scarce. The girl collected it in bits and pieces from different sources, and often found fragments contradicted each other, which hinted at the ephemerality of this person, although the basic facts converged: the name, appearance, the name of the ship, education, behavior. However, nautical tales were characteristically varied. Miss Brightmoon could not answer why she was interested in this particular story. She simply had a soft spot for it. She herself did not aspire to the free and dangerous life of a pirate, though she would have given much to escape the Donovan house, built on lies and money laundering, where her intelligence, curiosity, and ability to draw boundaries were reviled.
"Father asked me to call for you. He seems to have found a good match for you,"
Michael replied calmly. Candra recoiled in amazement, wondering if he was joking, but her cousin's gaze was serious, with malicious sparks. Then she frowned and spat out.
"Tell him I'm not interested in a conversation about it, and if he's so eager to have one, he can come and talk to me himself."
"I didn't mean a conversation, Candra. Your potential spouse is already here,"
the boy corrected with a nasty grin, enjoying the mixture of confusion and indignation on her face, then nodded at the door and turned his obese body to it.
"Come, don't keep the good guest waiting."
She would have gladly stayed in the library to read another James Hook story, but realizing she had no choice, she followed her cousin in a sullen shadow. She was on the threshold of the living room when her uncle's lusciously sweet voice shook the air.
"There she is. Thank you, Michael, for catching and bringing our lovely bird. Where were you flying this time, Candra?"
She could hear the contempt in his tone beneath the faint kindness, and she felt twinges of disgust inside. But on the outside she remained completely indifferent, though she failed to suppress the hint in her answer.
"I was in the library, planning to continue my research."
"Oh yes, she's a lover of reading about..."
Her cousin started sarcastically, but the head of the family interrupted him.
"You'll have time to continue that today, I promise. In the meantime, I'd like you to meet our guest. He has come a long way from London to visit us."
The lady took a few steps into the room and finally saw a man in his 30s or even younger, standing there in full Royal Navy uniform. He approached her with a demure smile, and she realized he was 2 heads taller than her. Quite handsome in appearance, with dark, low-set, bushy eyebrows, grey eyes and a neat nose, he looked good-naturedly at her rather detached face, and held out his hand to her unwaveringly.
"Commodore Alexander Mello."
"Candra, Brightmoon."
Out of respect, she raised the corners of her lips and placed her palm in his. She didn't like the tradition of kissing a lady's hand, as she considered any touch to be a violation of personal space, something she only wanted to allow to those closest to her. But she gave this man credit for barely touching her delicate skin and immediately pulling away.
It is a pleasure to meet you, my lady. I had intended to do so earlier, but the fleet was too busy. Finally, I have time to attend to my own plans,
He said in a low baritone. The girl's eyebrow trembled.
Was it your initiative to come here?
You could say so. Do you remember the Spanish ambassador's ball?
Candra thought for a moment. She had attended one a year ago. It seemed that the Spaniards had given Britain a pompous galleon as a gift.
Yes, but I don't remember seeing you there.
Alas, I only came for a short time, so I just noticed you and did not introduce myself. My friends told me everything they knew, and later it turned out that my father had served on a ship which was often used by your parents in their missions. I am sorry that they are no longer there.
The girl nodded slowly, looking thoughtfully at the quite earnest and collected young man, as if she was re-evaluating her attitude towards him. She found it interesting to talk to him, and yet not in the context of the wedding desired by her uncle, despite his status, self-presentation, and rather attractive appearance. As they talked, tea with dessert and fruit assortment was brought into the living room. Catching a brief pause, Mr. Donovan suggested to sit at the table. Alexander pulled the lady's chair, sat down opposite her, and, once everyone was seated comfortably, rather animatedly resumed the conversation.
May I ask what kind of research you were talking about?
Her uncle coughed nervously, and this gave her confidence. Maybe the man wouldn't find her hobby repulsive, but Mr. Donovan would experience a whole range of negative emotions. Such a rare opportunity to avenge his lenient attitude was not to be missed.
I'm interested in mythology, and as we live in the Caribbean in the age of piracy, I'm most interested in the legends of the sea.
Alexander was clearly not expecting to hear such an answer, but he did not look disappointed.
A very unusual hobby for a lady,
He remarked, unsure of how to respond, and added,
The age of piracy will soon come to an end. We are doing our best for it.
I believe so.
She shot back fervently, her eyes flicking as she leaned slightly forward.
You have been at sea most of your life and have been through many storms. Tell me, have you ever seen the Flying Dutchman?
Here we go.
Michael snorted faintly and took his tea, while his father began to slowly blush with anger and shame.
I know sailors love the story of the ghost ship, the omen of impending doom, and its cursed captain, Vander Decken, who is on short shrift with the sea devil himself. But believe me, it's only designed to excite impressionable natures. This ship is nothing more than an optical illusion, a mirage. I encountered it once. First, you see an image in the sky, and then exactly the same ship appears on the horizon.
Alexander answered in a friendly manner. The young lady's enthusiasm seemed to amuse him, in a good way.
Is the Kraken real? A leviathan of the sea devil that comes after those who have sold their souls to him.
Never saw it.
Do you have any information about a ship called the Jolly Roger?
That's enough.
Mr. Donovan exploded, tapping the table and staring angrily at his niece.
What impression do you make of yourself, Candra? A serious man has come to visit us with the intention of marrying you, and you fool him with idiotic questions about things invented by vile drunks and fiction writers. You are no longer a child, but a mature lady with a great education. Give up your pirate journalism already.
Enough?
She retorted, instantly turning to him and twinkling her eyes.
Isn't it enough to treat people as commodities? Everything you have done for me, you have done to make me more valuable. And you would have thrown me out on the street a long time ago if you had not wanted to rise in society at my expense by selling me to some rich man, for your son got expelled from Oxford. Every time I talk about something personal, I can see how disgusted you are by every word I say, how disgusted you are by me. Well, I'm still waiting to pack my bags and get the hell out of here. But not by a marriage of convenience.
The girl stood up abruptly, pushing back her chair with an unpleasant squeak, glancing once more at her furious uncle with a defiant look, and then turning it to the distraught Alexander, adding more quietly and even with a touch of regret, but still firmly.
Forgive me, Commodore, but I am not ready to accept your offer. I appreciate your visit, and perhaps we can continue to communicate on a friendly level. Best regards.
With these words, she waved the hem of her lilac dress and quickly retreated to her room. Behind her, she could hear her uncle's curt speech and the guest's muttered replies, but she could not make out the words. When she reached the bedroom, she shut the door firmly, walked to the bed, and collapsed onto it exhausted. She wouldn't eat tonight unless Michael took pity on her and asked for a modest meal for her, or unless her faithful maid Ellie could get her a piece of bread from the staff table. So be it. Candra was infinitely tired of living in a golden cage where she had no stake in anything. If only it were easier for the woman to find a decent job, she would have gladly stopped poisoning this house with her presence when she had come of age. Alexander appeared to her to be a courteous gentleman, but she wasn't sure she should trust that impression. Besides, despite his virtues, he didn't really enthuse her. There wasn't the spark in his eyes that she'd expected to see in her partner. Also, his interests coincided well with her uncle's plans, and it was a matter of principle to resist Mr. Donovan's will. Candra spent the rest of the day rereading a book she had in her room about some infamous pirates. Ellie came to prepare her for bed, alas, empty-handed, as the master of the manor intimidated all the servants with his bad temper, and questioned her about what had happened. Miss Brightman reluctantly recounted Alexander and her altercation with her uncle, and the maid fortunately recognized the signals and quickly left her. The hungry lady went to bed unaccustomedly early, thinking about how difficult it was to be an adult and how much she wished she could stop time, just so she never had to endure the menace of marriage of convenience and to fight the Donovans' oppression again. Strangely, the closer she got to sleep, the lighter her body felt, and then, just before she passed out, her thoughts returned to the subject of her latest research.